Commander Jack Reynolds stared at the smoldering ruins of Outpost Epsilon through the view screen and pinched the bridge of his nose. The headache he'd been nursing since breakfast had evolved into a full-blown migraine. "So let me get this straight," he said, his voice carrying the weary tone of someone who'd already heard too much nonsense before lunch. The Galactic Confederation's ambassador said they wanted to discuss trade agreements, then immediately opened fire on our outpost. Lieutenant Dave Miller nodded, his fingers dancing across the console. "Yes, sir." They transmitted what they claimed was a standard greeting, waited approximately 12 seconds, then deployed what they're calling diplomatic enforcement measures. "Diplomatic enforcement measures," Reynolds repeated flatly. "That's a creative way of saying we blew up your space station." "To be fair, sir, they only blew up half of it." Reynolds shot Miller a look that could have melted steel. "Oh, well, in that case, maybe we should send them a thank you note." The bridge fell silent as Reynolds paced, his boots clicking against the polished floor of Earth's flagship, the HSS Determined. Humanity had spent decades preparing for first contact, developing protocols, training diplomats, and establishing outposts specifically designed to welcome alien civilizations. Not once in all those preparations had anyone suggested that the aliens might just show up and start shooting. "Any casualties?" Reynolds asked, his voice softening. "None, sir." The station was running a skeleton crew, and they all made it to the escape pods. The Confederation ships didn't target the pods. "Well, that's something, I suppose." Reynolds turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel to Earth Command. Then prepare a message for our trigger-happy new friends." Admiral Julia Chen appeared on screen, her expression grim. "And Commander Reynolds, I take it our first diplomatic encounter didn't go as planned." "That's putting it mildly, Admiral. They've destroyed half of Outpost Epsilon, and they're still in the sector. I recommend immediate military response." Chen shook her head. "Not yet, Commander. The Security Council believes this may be a cultural misunderstanding. We're sending Ambassador Torres to your location. Until then, establish communication and inform them that Earth wishes to resolve this peacefully." Reynolds bit back a sigh. With all due respect, Admiral, they didn't seem interested in peaceful resolution when they were turning our outpost into space confetti. "Those are your orders, Commander. Earth Command out." The screen went dark, and Reynolds turned to his crew. "You heard the Admiral. Let's try being nice to the folks who just shot at us. Open a channel to the Confederation ships." Admiral Vex Tar of the Galactic Confederation leaned back in his command chair, all 6 of his appendages relaxed in what his species considered a posture of superior amusement. His chitinous exoskeleton gleamed under bridge lights as he watched the human transmission for the 3rd time. "Play it again," he chittered to his subordinate. "Their restraint continues to fascinate me." On screen, Commander Reynolds' message repeated. "This is Commander Jack Reynolds of Earth Space Command. We wish to establish peaceful dialogue and understand the reason for your attack on our outpost. We await your response and request a cessation of hostilities while we engage in diplomatic discussions." Vextar's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among the Asalathri. "Look at them," Second Commander Zrick. "The humans send words when we've destroyed their station. Such weakness." Zrick, a younger Salathri with less polished chitin, shifted uncomfortably. "Perhaps, Admiral, they are being strategic. The databanks suggest humans have surprising." "The databanks," Vextar interrupted, waving a dismissive appendage, "were compiled by cowards and academics. True understanding comes from direct testing. And what we've learned is that humans lack the spine, literally and figuratively, to defend themselves properly." Back on the HSS Determined, Communications Officer Penny Wilson was working overtime, poring over the limited information Earth had gathered about the Galactic Confederation. "Commander," she called, her voice tight with urgency, "I think I've found something. In the Confederation's dominant cultures, immediate aggressive response to any contact is expected from species worthy of respect. Their records show they've catalogued dozens of civilizations as subservient species because they attempted diplomacy rather than showing immediate strength." Reynolds stared at her. "You're telling me they attacked us to say hello, and they expected us to attack them back to prove we're not pushovers. That's actually a pretty accurate summary, sir. Fantastic, Reynolds muttered. So Earth Command's cultural misunderstanding theory was right, but their solution is exactly wrong. Before Reynolds could formulate a response, the ship's sensors blared. 3 more Confederation ships had appeared, and they were powering up weapons. Sir, they're targeting the refugee ships from Epsilon. Reynolds slammed his fist on the comm panel. All ships, evasive maneuvers. Get those civilians out of here. He turned to his tactical officer. Target their weapons systems only, and minimal force. As the determined moved to intercept, Vextar's voice came through the comms. Your continued diplomatic overtures confirm our assessment. The human species is now classified as Category 3, suitable for protectorate status. Resistance is unnecessary as you clearly lack both the will and capacity for it. The Confederation ships opened fire, destroying 2 of the refugee vessels before the determined could get into position. Reynolds' face hardened as the casualty reports came in. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the Confederation has escalated to targeting civilians, and we've engaged to protect our people. Also inform them that I believe this cultural misunderstanding just got a whole lot worse. Lieutenant Max Cooper had never been so uncomfortable in his life. Crammed into a maintenance shaft on the Confederation flagship, his muscles screaming from holding the same position for hours, he was beginning to question his career choices. This is what I get for volunteering, he muttered to himself. Could have been a dentist like Mom wanted. The infiltration mission had seemed straightforward enough. Sneak aboard during the minor skirmish that followed the refugee ship attack, gather intelligence, and get out. What no one had mentioned was that Confederation ships apparently had a different concept of temperature control, hovering somewhere between surface of Mercury and literal hell. A scuttling sound from around the corner made Cooper freeze. He held his breath as a maintenance drone passed by, its sensors sweeping just inches from his hiding spot. Once it was gone, he exhaled slowly and checked his wrist display. The data download was at 87%, just a few more minutes. Hey, what are you doing in maintenance shaft 7G? Cooper nearly jumped out of his skin at the voice. He spun around, reaching for his sidearm, only to find himself face to face with what appeared to be a walking potted plant with enormous, expressive eyes. Cooper stammered. The plant being tilted what Cooper assumed was its head. You're a human, aren't you? I thought you'd be taller. I'm crouching, Cooper explained, his hand still hovering near his weapon. Right. Makes sense. The alien extended a tendril. I'm Crizzle, environmental systems technician. And you're obviously not supposed to be here, which means you're either really lost or doing something interesting. Cooper stared at the offered tendril, then cautiously shook it. If I say lost, are you going to call security? Probably should, Crizzle mused, retracting the tendril. But honestly, I'm mostly curious. We don't get many humans sneaking around in maintenance shafts. It breaks up the monotony. Cooper's wrist display beeped softly. Download complete. He needed to get out, but Crizzle was blocking the only exit. Look, Cooper said, taking a chance. I'm trying to understand why your people attacked us without provocation. We're not looking for a war. Crizzle's eyes widened. Wait, you don't know. The High Command classified humans as primitive simians with delusions of sentience after your diplomatic response to our initial engagement. Standard procedure for dealing with Category 3 species is subjugation followed by integration into the labor force. Labor force? You mean slavery? We prefer mandatory employment opportunity, Crizzle said, making air quotes with his tendrils. But yes, essentially slavery. Cooper's jaw tightened. And your people are okay with this? My people? Crizzle laughed, a sound like rustling leaves. The Botani are barely tolerated as technical staff. We were Category 3 ourselves until we developed a terraforming technique the Confederation wanted. Now we're Category 2, useful but inferior. The Exalathri run everything. The who? Big bugs. Lots of arms, superiority complex the size of a gas giant. Admiral Vextar is the worst of them. Cooper's mind raced. This was valuable intelligence, but he needed to get it back to the determined. Look, Crizzle, I need to go. Will you report me? Crizzle's tendrils waved dismissively. Report what? I didn't see anyone in maintenance shaft 7G, just came to fix a temperature regulator. He winked, or at least Cooper thought it was a wink. It was hard to tell with those huge eyes. Thanks, Cooper said, genuinely grateful. Just one more question. What would make the Confederation back off? Fear, Crizzle replied without hesitation. They only respect power and the willingness to use it. Everything else is just weakness to be exploited. Cooper nodded, memorizing the information. As he slipped past Crizzle toward the access hatch, the alien called after him. Hey, human? If your people do decide to fight back, give him hell from the Batani. The emergency session of the Earth Security Council wasn't going well. The circular chamber, designed to foster cooperation and equality among Earth's nations, had devolved into a shouting match as reports from the front lines grew increasingly dire. 3 colonies hit in the last 24 hours. General Thompson thundered, slamming his fist on the polished table. The holographic display above the center of the room showed red indicators spreading across human space like a virus. While we sit here talking, the Confederation is picking us apart. Secretary General Odinga raised his hands, calling for order. We understand your frustration, General, but a full military response could escalate this conflict beyond our capacity to manage it. Beyond our capacity. Thompson's laugh was bitter. With respect, Mr. Secretary General, you haven't been briefed on our actual capacity. A murmur ran through the assembled representatives. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez cleared her throat, drawing all eyes to her. Unlike most of the council members who looked haggard after days of crisis management, Rodriguez appeared composed, almost serene. Perhaps, she said, her voice carrying easily through the chamber, it's time we stop pretending. Secretary General Odinga frowned. Ambassador Rodriguez, what exactly are you suggesting? Rodriguez stood, straightening her immaculate suit. For decades, we've presented ourselves to the galaxy as peaceful explorers, eager to join the interstellar community. We've hidden our true capabilities, downplayed our military preparedness, all in the name of not appearing threatening. She walked to the center of the room, passing her hand through the holographic display of human territory under attack. Lieutenant Cooper's intelligence confirms what we suspected. The Confederation sees our restraint as weakness. They don't understand that what they're witnessing isn't the limit of our capabilities, it's our choice not to unleash them. General Thompson leaned forward. You're talking about the Humanity Protocol. A hush fell over the room. The Humanity Protocol wasn't officially acknowledged in public records, but everyone in this room knew what it meant. I am, Rodriguez confirmed. When we first began exploring beyond our solar system, we made a collective decision to present ourselves as more civilized than our history might suggest. We buried the evidence of our conflicts, our resilience, our capacity for both terrible destruction and remarkable innovation under pressure. We wanted to be welcomed, not feared. And now that decision may cost us everything, Thompson added. Rodriguez nodded. The Confederation believes they're dealing with a Category 3 civilization docile, easily subjugated. They have no idea what humans are actually capable of when backed into a corner. Secretary General Odinga sighed heavily. The Humanity Protocol was created as a last resort, Ambassador. Activating it means abandoning the image we've carefully cultivated. With respect, sir, that image is getting our people killed, Rodriguez countered. The Confederation thinks they're dealing with sheep. It's time they learned they're dealing with wolves in sheep's clothing. The room fell silent as the implications settled over the council. Finally, Thompson spoke, his voice unnervingly quiet compared to his earlier outburst. The military is prepared to implement the protocol at your command, Mr. Secretary General. All we need is your authorization. Odinga looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each council member. One by one, they nodded their assent. Very well, he said, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision. Ambassador Rodriguez, prepare the final warning. General Thompson, Ready your forces. May whatever gods exist have mercy on us all, because I suspect we're about to show none to our enemies." Admiral Vextar was enjoying his victory meal when the transmission came through. The subjugation of the human colonies was proceeding even more smoothly than anticipated. The creatures barely put up a fight, their ships often retreating after minimal damage. It was almost disappointing. "Admiral," his communications officer called, "we're receiving a broadcast from Earth. It's being transmitted on all frequencies, in all known languages of the Confederation." Vextar waved a disinterested appendage. "Another plea for peace? Put it through. Let's all enjoy the entertainment." The main view screen flickered to life, showing a single human female in formal attire. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stared out at them, her expression betraying no fear, no desperation, only a cold certainty that made several of Vextar's officers shift uncomfortably. "Attention, Galactic Confederation forces," she began, her voice level and controlled. "This is Ambassador Elena Rodriguez of Earth. Your unprovoked attacks on our outposts and colonies have been noted and catalogued. Your targeting of civilian vessels has been recorded. Your intent to classify humanity as a Category 3 civilization suitable for subjugation has been confirmed through intelligence gathering." She paused, letting the words sink in. "This message serves as Earth's final communication before our response. It is, in essence, a courtesy that you have not afforded us." Vextar's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Such formality for surrender. Perhaps we should classify them as Category 4, at least they have a sense of ceremony." Rodriguez continued, "For the past 50 years, humanity has deliberately concealed its true nature and capabilities from the galaxy at large. We chose to present ourselves as explorers and diplomats, hoping to find peers rather than adversaries. This choice was not made from weakness, but from a profound understanding of our own history and potential." The amusement began to fade from Vextar's posture. Humanity has spent most of its recorded history fighting against nature, against each other, against anything that threatened our existence. We have waged wars that devastated continents, developed weapons that could destroy planets, and survived catastrophes that should have ended our civilization multiple times over. Each time we emerged stronger, more resilient, more innovative. Rodriguez's eyes seemed to bore directly into Vextar. "We chose peace because we know war better than any species you've ever encountered. We chose restraint because we understand precisely what we're capable of without it." She leaned closer to the camera. "This is your only warning. Stop attacking or we stop pretending to be civilized." The screen went dark, leaving the bridge in silence. After a moment, Vextar began to laugh, a sound that his subordinates hesitantly joined. "They threaten us. The Category 3 simians threaten the Galactic Confederation." His laughter grew louder. "Second Commander Zrick, prepare the fleet. It seems we need to teach the humans the consequences of empty threats." Zrick hesitated. "Admiral, perhaps we should analyze their—" "They've been retreating since first contact." Vextar snapped. "Their ships are inferior, their weapons outdated, their tactics predictable. This is clearly a desperate bluff." As orders went out to the Confederation fleet to accelerate the attack schedule, Zrick couldn't shake a growing sense of unease. Something about the human ambassador's warning felt different from the usual diplomatic protests they'd encountered before. Meanwhile, across human space, military bases that had officially never existed began powering up. Ships with configurations not logged in any public registry emerged from hidden docks, and soldiers who had been masquerading as scientists and colonists shed their civilian identities, ready to remind the galaxy why humans had chosen to hide their true nature in the first place. The first indication that something had changed came when the Confederation dreadnought Inevitable Conquest exploded without warning. One moment it was leading the assault on the human colony Proxima Centauri II, the next it was a rapidly expanding cloud of superheated debris. "What happened?" Vextar demanded, his exoskeleton clicking with agitation as reports flooded in. "Where did the attack come from?" "Unknown, Admiral," his tactical officer responded, frantically analyzing sensor data. There was no weapons signature, no approaching missiles, No enemy ships in range. Before Vextar could process this information, 2 more Confederation ships vanished from the tactical display. "Sir, the humans are hailing us." On screen, Vextar ordered, his confidence wavering for the first time since the conflict began. The face that appeared wasn't Ambassador Rodriguez, but Commander Jack Reynolds. He looked different. Somehow gone was the diplomatic restraint, replaced by something cold and predatory. "Admiral Vextar," Reynolds said, his voice casual, as if they were discussing the weather. "I see you've met our quantum displacement mines, nasty little things. We've had them surrounding all our colonies since we established them, completely undetectable until activated, sort of like humanity's actual military capabilities." Vextar's mandibles twitched. "This is a violation of..." "Of what?" Reynolds interrupted. "Galactic conventions you never bothered to explain to us. Rules of engagement you ignored when you attacked our outposts. Please continue explaining how we're breaking rules while you're conducting a campaign of conquest." "Where are these ships coming from?" Vextar demanded as reports of new human vessels appeared on his tactical displays. "They weren't there before." Reynolds smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Remember how Ambassador Rodriguez mentioned we've been hiding our true nature? That included our fleet. The ships you've been fighting were our diplomatic vessels, the equivalent of armed couriers. What you're seeing now is a small fraction of our actual military." On cue, a massive human warship dropped out of what the Confederation had assumed was an unstable wormhole, actually a carefully disguised hyperspace aperture. The vessel dwarfed anything the Confederation had in the sector. "Allow me to introduce the HSS Consequence," Reynolds said. "Our first planet killer class dreadnought. We built it hoping we'd never need to use it. You've forced our hand." Across Confederation space, similar scenes were playing out. Hidden human fleets emerged, targeting Confederation military installations with surgical precision. Ground forces that had been posing as colonists suddenly revealed military-grade weaponry and training that spoke of generations of warfare. In the Botani sector, Crizzle watched with unmistakable glee as human special forces disabled the Confederation's control systems, freeing his people with minimal bloodshed. "I told you to give him hell," he whispered. Back on the bridge of his flagship, Vextar was facing the end of his career, possibly the end of his life. The human vessels had surrounded his remaining ships, cutting off all escape routes. "This is impossible," he chittered, more to himself than his terrified crew. They were retreating. They were weak. Reynolds' voice came through again. "No, Admiral, we were being civilized. There's a difference. Humanity spent thousands of years fighting ourselves before we learned the value of peace. But make no mistake, we remember how to fight. We've just been choosing not to." The human paused, his expression hardening. "The Confederation has 1 hour to surrender all forces, withdraw from human space, and begin reparation discussions. After that, we stop asking nicely." As the transmission ended, Vextar realized with dawning horror the true meaning of the human warning. They hadn't been bluffing. They hadn't been exaggerating. If anything, they had been understating their capabilities. "Say," Second Commander Zrik approached cautiously. "Your orders, Admiral?" Vextar stared at the tactical display, watching as more of his fleet's indicators blinked out. The humans weren't just winning, they were doing so with insulting ease. "Send the surrender," he said quietly, "and prepare a full report for the High Command. They need to understand what we've awakened." Within hours, news spread throughout the galaxy. The Galactic Confederation, which had subjugated dozens of species across multiple sectors, had been brought to its knees in less than a day by a civilization they had dismissed as primitive simians. As representatives gathered to negotiate the terms of peace, Ambassador Rodriguez made only one thing clear: humanity chose peace before, and we choose it again now. But remember this lesson well: we are peaceful not because we must be, but because we choose to be. Question that choice at your peril. In the centuries that followed, many civilizations would seek alliance with Earth. None would ever again mistake human restraint for weakness, and in the diplomatic archives of 1,000 worlds, one phrase would be highlighted in every briefing about human relations: "Caution, politeness is not inability."